Hey, I'm Justin.
This is Chaz.
Join us as we look back together, but learn to stay present.
Come with us as we rise up with hope on the horizon.
This is the podcast of extraordinary millennial gentlemen.
Jay Hambrick over here is video challenge today, so he will be on audio. Chaz here as usual.
Too many kids on Netflix, man. Too many kids.
The Netflix on the block.
Taking the bandwidth.
Man, I think the internet providers are still like by, general area.
Yeah.
Having way too much draw. So it's like we're using our bandwidth properly, but neighbors, everybody queues up and it's like, you can tell.
See, we're contributing to the content. We're creators. We're not takers.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
No, that's all good.
This should have priority on bandwidth. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. The podcast. That's all you need to know.
Yep. Search for it, like it, hit the button. There you go. So today, as we discussed before, we are going to be talking about a book, a very interesting book, one I had no clue ever existed.
Yeah, that's interesting. Where did this even come from? I don't remember where I heard the reference to this book, but I kind of suggested it.
It was off your list. And
Yep.
For those who have seen the movie with Tom Cruise, Valkyrie, there are references to that we'll be discussing today.
That's
Valkyrie,
true. That's true, actually.
And that was my big draw in. Like when you mentioned Bonhoeffer and like Nazi conspiracy stuff, I was like, does this have to do with Valkyrie? Like, I hope it does.
Yeah.
So that was my draw into the book. And then,
gosh, it took a while to get there, but
I agree.
That's all good.
Yes. Yeah.
Hey, before we do that though, I gotta know this past week what you've been consuming. I'm excited to get in the book.
Oh, yes.
I also want to know.
Yeah, thanks for
completed the book. So what's been on your go-to this week?
Man, I am super consumed again. Only for a few more weeks of school. It's consuming quite a bit of time.
Right.
Although I have I've been consumed with how would you put this? Deal shopping. Like,
hey, okay.
And selling stuff around the house and shopping for deals. So here's
this is interesting.
My undergrad is mechanical engineering, right? So I still have all these old books, and I was like, man, you kind of bond a little bit with these books that you hated and loved and hated mostly.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to get rid of these. Like I know where to go. I could teach, physics and, whatever to my kids, and they've just sat on bookshelves forever. And I was just finally at the point I was like, okay, yeah, I can sell these. I'll post them on eBay. I actually sold one today.
What?
Really? Just super old. It's like my 3-inch book that I remember paying over $500 for.
Oh,
and I am now selling it for $25. Great
college.
Turn on that college investment.
There's your return on investment for everybody who's in student debt. Y'all feel this. Y'all know what I'm talking about.
The lesson I've learned is, if you're really going to use it, which
sell them before you graduate.
Sell the books immediately. They're worth the most then, not now.
Like halfway through the semester, you at least are going to get a C. Go ahead and post them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I've been doing that, some eBay, some OfferUp, some Let Go, just a couple non-sponsored.
Cool. That's cool.
Non-sponsored, but doing some selling there. And but then kind of using that, I'm kind of flipping old stuff. So I've sold some old stuff to buy someone else's old stuff.
Yeah, there you go.
So
yeah, man.
That's been, so the purchase of the week, this was a great buy. Shout out to the person that posted this for sale because it was amazing. So I can't even remember what I sold now. It's beyond me, for like $60. And then that night I was searching online.
Yeah, man. Because you just got $60.
I just got $60. So I'm searching.
Go
and
buy
all of a sudden,
something.
there is this net and a golf net. A really nice one that's like, I think 150 plus or something. And then it came with a box of box of 100 balls, give or take, the
Hey.
ones they may have lost. The hitting platform, like the little fake
the mat. The mat.
The little mat with a rough side and a fairway side and the different 3 layers of tees and all that for $60.
Hey, man.
And so I just did an exchange, and I've already used it like 3 times with the little guy and some friends and I know more to come. So I was like, that's a great
Tiger Woods, like, y'all,
baby
in the garage.
Coming. Yeah. And I can use it in the garage, maybe be able to finagle it in the basement, but
watch those light fixtures on the backstroke.
I know I've been trying, and it's either vents or light fixtures.
Yeah.
And so maybe
That's
not.
Cool,
but
man.
garage, like back out the cars, like easy.
Yeah.
Done. So that's been fun. It's been fun.
That's fascinating to me.
It's like a primal instinct of hunting for deals. So
kill something and drag it home, man.
Exactly.
$60. That's really interesting to me because this week I have been consuming a little self-help book called Declutter Your Life. I'm not even joking. Wow. And I talked to the wife today, and we are ready to get rid of some stuff. And a lot of it's not recycled.
The Japanese lady, like
no
declutter.
No,
it's different.
No. This doesn't bring me joy. I forget. It's like Maria Akimbo or something. Which is, for you gamers out there, Akimbo is when you can shoot 2 guns in your game. I always think her name's Akimbo, but I don't think that's what it is. People will comment. People will let us know. The audience will yell at us. Okay, right. I get it.
Yes.
Just because it's on Netflix doesn't mean we watch it. Okay. Anyway, no, it's not her. It's actually a British person. And the reason I know, and you've seen this, you read a ton, is because the word color is like color with a U in it. Mm-hmm. So clearly British. I haven't started reading it in my head with a British accent, which can be distracting. But it's good, man. It's just solid. And it's what you guys are doing. It's like, hey, you don't need this stuff. Get rid of it. You know, it might stress you out. Don't move across the country with it 5 times, which is what we've done with all of our stuff.
Yeah, it's like carrying this stuff all around with you. And I mean, we're spending more time at home, right? So this extra time, people, I think not just us, I think the neighborhood, like there's a lot of things. People are, exchanging these things out, getting rid of old stuff they've been hanging on to for a while. And it's just kind of opening up and sharing, which is good community stuff happening. So
definitely. I like it. You look at what's in your own 4 walls, and if you're like the average person, it's got too much crap in it.
That you're on, it's kind of the same similar story going on. So, and for listeners out there, what are, is that happening to you as well? Like, is this phase of, hey, let's get rid of some old stuff. Let's, whether that's donate to a Goodwill, postings for sale, whatever. And maybe you're doing it to make some extra bucks, and let us know.
Yeah, man. So that's good. That's a lot of good stuff for this week. So let me kick it off a little bit with the book. So this is our first book review. And like I said, everybody out there, you heard me say it. I don't remember how this got on a reading list for me. I have no idea, but I added on there the book, official title, Bonhoeffer, Pastor, Martyr, Prophet, Spy. Chaz and I were talking about this beforehand. The author, we apologize, sir. You're a great author. Eric Metaxas? That's my Ron Burgundy question mark. Ron Burgundy? The author is Eric Metaxas.
Yes.
Super good author, historian, right? That was really clear to me in the layout of the book. It was very specific, written like a history, but I don't know. I'll let you talk a little bit more about it. Man, what were your thoughts overall?
Man, very historical. It with the whole Valkyrie thing that I opened up with, I was just like, yes, where is this? When is this going to happen? Please let me know. And
it made you wait for it.
It did. Yeah, it was much more biographical than I had anticipated. And much more just about his life. And I mean, I guess that's what the definition of biographical is. But Yeah, wasn't expecting that, but I guess I didn't know what to expect because this was just, off the cuff. Let's dive into this guy. Didn't know. I mean, I guess I should have read the subtitle right. Pastor, like the religious undertones, and maybe those are overtones. Those are probably major chords in this whole book because it defined him. That's who he was. It's who he
theologian.
Yeah, exactly. He was very much a student of theology and his beliefs there, and seems like kind of hardcore silent type, like I mean,
intellectual,
very, very intellectual. He despised low level conversations, or not despised. He would just come home wishing for more, I would put it. Like he was always like, oh, but if only we had these deep questions and insights to discuss. It was so jovial and lighthearted. Those types of so those are my initial thoughts. What about you?
No, I'm the same, man. It kind of felt like a 4-mile hike with a lot of elevation change in like the first 3.9 miles. And you're like, dang, okay, I know this thing's going to pay off. I know it will.
Right.
And I wouldn't say it was painful, but like you said, well, it's historic, man. There's no fiction about it. It was incredibly detailed. And it did, for me, go through a lot of a person's thinking. And let's face it, the guy was well-traveled, was well-educated, had a lot of relationships, friends, family, contemporaries. And it took a little long for me, for my normal liking, to get to some of those historic events. But it was still fascinating. It was still very, very interesting to me. I do like biographies, full disclosure. Just incredible level of detail for sure.
Yeah, I felt, and this was maybe my big gripe, and it's probably nothing Eric could have done about writing this book, but there were so many, I guess, rocks unturned because there's probably no information to get in more depth on certain like specifics. It was like, oh great, we're finally there, and that's just what he did. Or that's
like I said, everybody. Yeah, it was kind of like that 1/10 of a mile, kind of like, and bing, bang, boom.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, so like, I don't know. I don't want to jump to the end with any spoilers, but yeah, you get a lot of history. His siblings, like extended family, his grandma, and he traveled a lot. I'm like, man. One thought that kept coming to me is, I'm like, okay, I get you're a pastor. That's like your vocation, and you have these places you teach at,
right,
on Sundays mostly, and you'd have youth groups and these other things, but you traveled and moved so much and kind of lived out of a suitcase a lot. I'm like, what did you survive on? Like, did that pay enough? Like, I know at certain points his grandma sent him money to help, and his parents would send him furniture to furnish some of these places he would be in, but I'm just like, it just seemed like that was never a question. It never was a hindrance in his life. He was just able to do what he needed to at any given time. And maybe that was there and the author didn't bring that part up, but it just never came out.
And maybe that's the interesting kind of unique story of his that you and I are probably a lot less familiar with. And that is like, well, what is an intellectual theologian?
Yeah.
What is a person who has religious intelligence, and how does that person have what you and I would call a career, but like you said, a means to provide for yourself? That was different. It was definitely a unique perspective. So my gripes, I share the same gripes you have.
Okay.
And I think the author's take, I'm not apologizing for him or sticking up for him, but I think he's such a historian in his approach I think he avoided a lot of details you and I might find more interesting in the narrative of this person's life, but he just didn't go there because there wasn't correspondence or, corroborators or sources. I'm guessing. But I also think that I don't know, but if I wrote this book and you go through the subtitle, Pastor, Martyr, Prophet, Spy, that's not a bad kind of approach to, I think, how this was written.
Yeah, that's true. It kind of follows first, that.
He lost his life. I'm not saying chronological, everybody.
Yeah.
Level of detail. The spy thing was definitely the weakest part for me.
Yeah.
I didn't see that so much. Conspirator, maybe. I could see that, but spy I didn't really get.
It was, very small piece. And that was where there was so little about him being a spy. And it even mentions for a moment when he had chosen to do be a double spy, but that's all it said. It was like he was really sad and depressed when he became a double agent,
and you're like,
and then the next chapter begins and you're like, is there gonna be more? The answer is no.
That's a really good point. I noticed that as well. So I want to hit a couple things I made some notes on. I did learn quite a bit about some of the religions at the time. This whole idea of like the German Christian church and its slow, this probably isn't a word for everybody out there, but Nazification, slowly being turned into a soapbox for the National Socialists and a means to continue their propaganda. Didn't happen right away. I found that kind of progress as the history unfolded. I found that pretty interesting. Kind of how, to me, we've all probably heard of something similar to, you can't throw a frog into a pot of boiling water. You got to slowly turn that water up by degrees, and the frog will never get out. It'll just go, oh, it's a little bit warmer. It's a little warmer. And eventually you got boiled frog, which I guess is like a gypsy delight. I don't know.
The slow pace that occurred for people, and the author's viewpoint with, the Bonhoeffer family, and how they were still holding out hope that this was just a bad political guy that got into office and it would pass, that type of stuff. Like, things were really bad. And I didn't realize how under wraps the rest of the world was for quite some time on the concentration camps and the, the crematories and the gas chambers. Like, that was happening even in Germany very silently for quite some time. And nobody knew. Like, they had to, and he was part of that group where they were making contacts with Churchill, with other, influential leaders over in England that they were trying to persuade to say, hey, we have a resistance here. We have this plan.
And support us, asking for support to these major nations, major players. Not always getting that support. Not trying to throw every detail out there, but in a lot of cases, not getting either acknowledged or formally supported.
And it was the historical references to Churchill were interesting for me. I've read up on his biographies. His wife's, haven't finished that one. That's a bit harder to get through, but just Churchill, his key role, right? I mean, we could all be speaking German right now if
true.
I believe if it weren't for certain historical events that happened here in Britain, and Churchill's definitely involved in a bunch of those pieces. And so to see this other side, because Churchill kind of sounded like a jerk from their point of view. Right?
Yes.
He didn't come
unsupportive.
Off well.
No.
Yeah. And then when the Valkyrie attempt failed, he was, I don't have the exact quote here. I wanted to have it, but it's kind of like he said, oh yeah, look at them, they're just fighting for power internally. Like
Yeah.
he didn't even acknowledge that it was part of the resistance and coup to overthrow Hitler. So it was just. But I also at the same point I'm like, he had a totally different agenda. Just back to Churchill a little bit here. He was trying to get the United States in the war. He was trying to get Europe in the war.
Yeah.
And so he had to like put himself and his phrasing and his position in such a way to get them there. He couldn't be like, there are some really good Germans over there and they're not in this, but let's go to war with them. Let's try and pick and choose who they are. But he just had to call them all Nazis in order to, I think, get the buy-in.
Yeah, man. No, that's true. That's a good point. And for everybody out there, this didn't totally change my understanding of history. I wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
But does it provide insights, like Chaz says? 100%, you know.
Yeah, you get to kind of look at the life through the growth into that power regime taking over and like socializing the whole social of the state of Germany, and it's kind of like reading people's journals and like what was it like, and I think he has some excerpts and stuff through that. So that part was cool because it's like the day in the life at that time period for what was going on. Because you always, I think for me at least growing up, that was the interesting part of history, was not just the macro level, but some of these details where you kind of get a view of their life. So that I thought was really the good parts.
I agree. I've got one of those tiny micro level details that stuck out to me pretty early in the book.
Yeah.
Talking about, the Nazi regimes, the Third Reich's rise to power. And it actually comes from the life of Martin Luther. So the audience out there, Bonhoeffer was a Lutheran, which I learned a lot more about the Lutheran Church, its roots in Germany. A detail that stuck out to me, micro detail, was from Martin Luther. And leave it up to the Nazis, the most evil regime that at least the 20th century we've ever known.
Yeah.
And documented in great detail in our history. Hey, Martin Luther, this stuck out to me as you just got to watch your words, because you don't know how your words will be construed,
used. Yep.
And it was something from Luther's life that came out in this book that said, hey, the Nazis felt like Martin Luther was their guy. He's German. He associates with the German people. There's a association that people see to his life, and it's cultural, right? Whether people are religious or not, it's like that German nationalism was very strong. And in the book, it was interesting to me that, later in life, Martin Luther went through some stuff, some suffering.
Yep.
Became pretty crotchety and crabby. And but he said some things derogatory to Jews and to Judaism.
Yep.
And again, man, I'm not saying that, hey, my takeaway from this book is that Martin Luther was a real piece of work. Not saying it.
Right.
But to me, it just, a micro detail of the history of this jumped out to me, that you have to watch what you say, because the National Socialists, the Nazis in Germany, took that derogatory letter that Luther wrote about Judaism and was like, boom, there we go. See? And they used that as part of their ideology. It furthered their agenda. And you or I have no idea the legacy that we leave that may be construed, taken.
Yeah.
It was a wake-up call to me. It was an interesting detail in the book.
Yeah, I've to round out that thought, in this other book I picked up that I mentioned, I think last time, I may go back and re-listen to some sections, but it makes some of those similar ties, and just the whole ideology of the Nazis, how bad they really were, and all of these things. It's just kind of blew my mind. But on the flip side of that, that, and we'll take a break here in just a minute, but on the flip side of that, through all of this and through everything he kind of goes through, one of the I think strengths of this man Bonhoeffer, like Dietrich Bonhoeffer, is through all of it, he looked on the positive. He was very at peace. He felt he was, that prophet part. He felt he was called on this mission to do part of these things and be part of this conspiracy and resist. But
righteous
through it all,
resistance,
good or bad, he was just like, you know what? He made the best of it. He loved it. And so, I look up to him for that. Like in these really, really hard times, he was giving hope to other people in these hard times. So I think, if anything, for listeners out there, it's like these may be hard times we're in right now, and this is a great example. And you can see where he relies on his strengths, where he gets it from his, ideals, his faith, his family, those types of things.
That's right.
Which I think we're all learning.
Intangibles in some cases. Strength of character.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, 'cause I agree with your take you shared before that nice break, that, this was a life of a lot of opposition. It didn't start that way. I would say he was pretty privileged in some ways. And he took that stance and called a kettle black and said, if you guys haven't heard that saying, what I mean is, he looked at the regime, Hitler's regime, the Nazi movement, and said, no. Yeah. This is false ideology. This is a religion of hate. And ultimately lost his life because of it. Spoiler alert, but not really. I mean, come on. If you can look at Wikipedia.
Well, martyr is in the subtitle. So if you miss that, to me, it's kind of like martyr, the whole, just German subtitle. Well, not subtitles. It was a title of Darth Vader. And we were like, oh, I couldn't believe it. And then later we find out that Darth Vader's like Dark Father in German. We're like, what? It's kind of like that.
Man.
Sorry, spoiler alert. If you haven't seen Star Wars, sorry. Just drop that.
I like it. And for everybody out there, you guys know, out in the millennium, you guys know, but Star Wars started before Disney. Just saying. Okay, not going there. I'll stop while I'm ahead. Well, let me ask you this, man. So we got to get to a mentor minute here coming up, but I want to get your final thoughts on this book. This is our first read together for the podcast.
Yep.
I want you to throw me a 1 out of 10. 1 being, this was garbage. It was painful to my brain. It insulted my intelligence. It offended me. 10 being, I talk to my wife about it constantly. All my friends, I got to shout it from the rooftops. This belongs in everybody's library. 1 to 10. What do you give it?
Man, for me, it slices right down the middle. I give it a 5. Just because
got it. Yeah.
Of the things we mentioned, there's these really good nuggets, and there's this really cool historical view and all of this. And I like that. And I think those pieces I've shared with other people, but then there's all these other pieces that I just maybe, I think if I went into it, like thinking it would be that, like you said, it's like, but just that really long, building up all the action and the short resolution, the peak and then the short resolution. Like if I knew that was the style, I'd probably give it higher ratings. So it's a little biased, but yeah, that's where it's at for me. What about you?
Nah, man, I hear you. I'd probably go a 6.
Yeah.
And it's not because I'm trying to one up you. I agree with everything you said. I think as a history though, it's very deep in the subjects that it has documented and understands. It was not a page turner for me. It was not. I struggled through some parts where I'm like, wait, who what? Does this matter?
Yeah.
And again, I don't say that because the guy's life was not important. But for everybody out there, we're just talking about a book review. So for me, it's not staying on my permanent shelf and probably not recommending it. But, Definitely saying that I've read it.
Yep. Yeah, no, totally. And my last few thoughts on just overall, where I actually really connected with him was, on the later chapters, later in his life, probably part of the book that he was writing in jail that never saw the light of day. And when he felt he was getting some real personal revelation from God, and in his understanding of the Lutheran theology and theology in general. This isn't specific to that, but because he started writing these memoirs and sharing it with friends, and his friend and people have taken those and kind of, from the author's point of view, right, took off and just took these one-liners out of these things, which may not be from the right light, but I think he really came around to the idea and all the suffering and everything he went through and what he saw for other people and what he was fighting against the whole time, that we're all children of God. That was one thing he felt he received revelation for, and I really, some of those points at the end of the book that he makes religiously align with my beliefs in who God is, our loving Heavenly Father, we're all his children. Those things just really connected, and for him to receive those at that time and to give him that peace when he's been in jail and transferred and starving,
right,
and all these things, and he's there. I mean, and there's certain details, and I won't give everything away, right? But he basically chose to be there at the end, knowing he needed to die for what he was standing for. Basically, I think he knew, and he made that choice.
He's a very courageous man. I agree with you. There's a lot of inspiration laced in this, and for everybody out there, I don't mean religious inspiration. I don't mean that it's overtly, this tone or that tone, but you're just talking about somebody who resisted righteously for the right reasons in a very difficult time, ultimately lost his life because of it. So I'm going to wrap up with a mentor minute. This actually comes from Dave Ramsey this week. One of the things I didn't mention in kind of my consuming this week was just getting caught up on some good old Dave Ramsey podcasts.
Oh, yes.
Traffic in Seattle's picking up a little bit. I got a little bit more time in the car, so I've been listening to some podcasts, and I extract this Daveism. I took this Daveism this week, and he said in a nutshell that your life is a film strip. It's not a snapshot. And what I take from that, guys, and relating to your lives and leadership and mentorship, is that failure is not final. Mistakes are a part of life. And when you look at somebody's life, whether it's Dietrich Bonhoeffer's or Chaz's or mine, or somebody that you maybe aspire to, you need to recognize that mistakes are a part of life, and those things are ultimately called experience. And when you and I want to get more experience, we want wisdom. We got to remember that there's a lot of opposition in that. There's a lot of difficulty that's going to come with that, learning times. So you got to remember in those times of discouragement or challenge that your life is not a snapshot. It's not a moment in time. And if you want that experience, if you want to have that wisdom, you've got to get through those times of difficulty. And remember, you're always able to change, right? Remember that the movie's going to keep going. Your life's going to keep going. The journey's going to keep going. So keep seeking, keep moving forward, and you'll gain that wisdom. You'll gain that experience. That was my little Daveism. Your thoughts?
No, I think it's a good one for these times, right? We may be struggling through some things. It makes me think of a Will Ferrell movie, where just the whole film thing. If you've seen Stranger Than Fiction, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Right.
If you haven't, go look at it. So I think it corresponds with that, because he's living his life, but he's also in a book. He's in a storyline, and the storyline kind of has almost been written. And so it's like, hey, like your story, like our stories are not like his, right? I don't want to give away the end of that movie because it's great. It's a good one. And we can change the next chapter. We can change the end, right? We can, to your point, and this isn't a spoiler, but in the end, he's able to kind of change what's happening. I'll leave it at that. So I think, get inspired by that. Use this time, use it as leverage, right? Instead of, sometimes you feel like you're pinned against a rock, and it's just like, no, you can use that lock for the leverage to roll these boulders out of your life, get these things, changed, moved. So yeah, completely agree.
Just don't stop moving, everybody. And I mean that literally, I mean that figuratively. Mm-hmm. Don't stop the journey you're on. The world is always going to throw obstacles in many shapes, many forms. So just keep moving. Just remember, it's not a Polaroid. It's a film strip. It's a journey, and we're on it with you.
Hey, thanks for spending some time with us today. Hope you find hope and joy throughout this upcoming week. If you've liked this podcast, please hit the subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and we'll see you next week.